Hey everybody, Tom here with Hidden Beats, and today we're talking with Myles Castello. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. It's a nice winter day, like usual here.
Yeah.
So we're here today to talk about you, your music, and just kind of what you bring to the world. But for those who are new, can you give a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Myles Castello. I'm an artist, a singer, and producer from Toronto, Ontario. And basically, my whole sound and direction with what I've been working on recently is in the alternative R&B space. So I put out a couple of records a couple of months ago, and they kind of have this new smooth acoustic guitar sound to them that I've been trying to hone in on and develop and kind of get to a place where I'm really comfortable going forward with all this new stuff. So I've been making music for about 10 years now, been playing guitar, been teaching music, been performing music, and now I'm just working on a new project. So I'm kind of getting that ready to go for the spring and kind of doing all the final touches with it and all the collaborations. So that's what's happening.
Yeah, sounds awesome. How did you get started in music? Like, did you have a musical family or?
I mean, my family was always they always had music around. Like I didn't really grow up around musicians necessarily, more just like my mom used to sing, and it was just like just household stuff, right? Like we were always playing music and family events, but I kind of got into it early high school and I started like picked up the guitar, started, learning a couple chords, favorite songs, all of that. And then naturally it kind of led into more production and songwriting and then writing for myself and trying to find my own sound with that whole thing. So it came a little bit the artist part came a little bit later for me. It was more just kind of learning how to play guitar originally, right?
Mhm.
And then I ended up taking some guitar lessons and then just learning how to produce. And that's
Who
kind
are
of where it
some
took
of
off.
the early influences that help build your sound?
At first, like when I was learning guitar, I was listening to like a lot of blues stuff. So it was like I was really heavy into like old school, like soul music. Um, More recently, like I've been listening to in terms of that soul transition, like I was listening to like a lot of like Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, BB King, and then it went into like Leon Bridges was kind of more the newer stuff that I was listening to in that blues era. A lot of John Mayer because I love the blues sound. And from there, when I started to write my own songs, it became a little bit more R&B. And then that's where I kind of developed um, that style for myself, right? And in terms of like influences now, I'd say probably what the spin-off is from those guys and developing that guitar skills would probably be like Frank Ocean, Daniel Caesar, I've listened to a lot recently. It's been kind of a good influence. Brent Faiyaz as well. Miguel from the R&B territory. So
Hmm.
yeah, it kind of transitioned from more blues when I was learning guitar to more R&B as I developed the songwriting, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now, what's your process like when you're putting together a track or an album or just like a project? How do you flush everything out?
I mean, most of the time when I start ideas, it's usually on the guitar or I start like producing like a beat. I'll get some chords going. Like I use Studio One, so I'm kind of on there just, experimenting with sounds and samples, or I'll have people send me stuff a lot of the times. Like a lot of the collaborations I do would be like, oh, here's a loop, here's a chord progression or a full fleshed out beat that I want to send you to work on, and I'll work on it that way and develop it from there. Or the other way is probably with just lyrics, and I'll have one or two lines, start with that, and just kind of find the melodies after building out the concept, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Now, how do you think your music has evolved going back to like 2018's Bad Company until your newer releases now?
Yeah, I think definitely the sound has definitely changed. From Bad Company, it was a lot more of a pop R&B influence, I'd say. That's kind of how I would classify it, where it's a little bit more produced, a lot cleaner sounding. Things are a lot bigger and just in your face, right? But the newer stuff has been a lot more reserved in terms of the sonics, but lyrically a little bit more kind of just pushing the boundary a little bit with the lyrics and the storytelling and the songwriting. I think I'm generally a soft-spoken person, and I think that is now coming out in more of the newer music and the most recent releases. So there's still that R&B essence to it, but I would definitely say it's more instrumental now than it was before, which was more like electronic bass and more heavily produced, right?
Hmm. Yeah, like I listened to some tracks kind of on like on your journey of music there, and you could see some evolution throughout. So it makes sense what you
Yeah,
said for sure.
for sure. Yeah.
Now, you recently just won an award with SOCAN, the Black Canadian Music Award.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
It's been great. I think I've known SoCan throughout my whole music journey, and it's been amazing to just kind of work with them and meet people throughout that whole just through the last year. I feel like I spent most time just kind of doing some songwriting camps with SoCan and meeting a lot of the executives and just kind of honing in on the craft from the film and music side, the film TV side to the just the songwriting side, and winning the award, it's an honor, and I'm really happy to have received it. So thank you, SoCan and Sirius for
Hmm.
that. Appreciate
Now,
it.
being somebody involved with SOCAN, how can you explain to other artists how SOCAN helps a musician like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, especially like from Canada, it's like you got to be registered with SOCAN. I think, especially if you're gonna get to a point where you want to be able to collect royalties for your work, you need to be registered, right? And SOCAN is a PRO that can a performance rights organization that can kind of track all of your records wherever they're played, if they're played overseas, if they're played locally, and just kind of be that all in one shot for you to start collecting your income.
Hmm. Now, being somebody in the industry for a little bit now, what do you think it takes to stand out above someone else?
I think really I find like nowadays too, there's a lot of, gimmicks. I don't call them gimmicks, but in a negative way, but just things that you can do to kind of grab people's attention. But I think ultimately what it comes down to for longevity is like building a team of people you trust on the music side, sonically to develop your sound, and then having a couple people, curators that you know who can kind of get that music in the right spot and get it in front of the right people. But I think it always comes down to the collaboration side and the team that you have for to continue growing and to continue to expand, right?
Hmm. What do you think's the hardest part about building the team? There's so many different things. Like, you have your management, you have your toured people, you have your social media people. What's been the hardest part for you to get your head around?
For me, the hardest part, like I've always been okay with kind of collaborations and finding people that I vibe with to kind of sketch out sounds. I think for me the biggest thing has always been just like the marketing side after the records are made, right? And just
Hmm.
getting it placed in more places in front of more people. And that's really where I think for me has always been like the focus to develop and grow because I've always naturally been able to, I can pump out 10 songs a week and produce them and write with other people or work on other people's projects. But now it's like it comes more when it's time to promote it and get it out there is always I think for every artist is always the bigger hurdle than just writing the songs. Naturally, you're always able to create and flesh out the ideas, but when it comes to just being like, okay, how do I take the song from being on my computer to, to getting on people's playlists and getting on the radio or getting just in front of people in general, right? So I think
Hmm.
that's always, especially in this day and age, like the forever changing aspect, right?
Yeah, and you're a business now. You're trying to push yourself in all aspects. So you got to make
Yeah,
sure you have an understanding of everything.
yeah, for sure.
Now, music being what it is, it's a crazy place. There's all kinds of stuff going on. What do you do to stay grounded outside of that?
In terms of music, I think for any artist, like if you're really trying to you have something to say, you have a message or some kind of moral that you want to get across in your music, you have to, always say like live life. You know what I mean? It sounds a little cliche, but it's like if that's where your art's coming from, it's like try to experience more, try to do more things that you wouldn't do, meet new people that you wouldn't necessarily always hang around to kind of just pull from inspiration from different places and storytelling that's what keeps things fresh from a creation standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm. Now
Yeah.
you're in probably the mecca of music for Canada and Toronto and the GTA. What's your thoughts on the music scene there?
I mean, GTA, I think it's where it's at. It's like in Canada, I feel like you have Vancouver, you have Montreal, and you have Toronto, but Toronto is definitely I think in the more recent years too, I would say the last decade, like has been where a lot of the bigger artists that have kind of gone international have come from, at least from what I know, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know too much about the Vancouver side, but in Toronto, it's always buzzing. There's always up and coming people. There's a nice heritage of like, there's people who have been there in the scene for a while that are always around that you're able to kind of tap into. So I think in terms of accessibility, Toronto's probably the best place for that.
Who do you think's putting it on the best for the city right now?
I think I'm gonna have to say if it's from Toronto, I'm gonna go with Daniel Caesar,
Okay.
Jesse Ray. Um, Who else? I mean, in terms of helping, like from a community standpoint, Cardinal Fischel, I think has done a lot as well
Yeah,
for
for
the hip
sure.
hop community. And yeah, I guess those are kind of like the top three I'd go with right now
No,
in
no, it's
terms of.
pretty good. Pretty good. I like those ones. Now, I ask some fun questions closer to the end of all my interviews because it kind of makes you think a little bit more. And my first one for you is, who's someone on your go-to playlist that people wouldn't expect you're listening to?
Ooh, that's a
Like
hard
a
one.
guilty
Let me
pleasure song.
just let me get the actual facts going here. Let me pull it out and see who I've been listening to. But okay, believe it or not, I've been listening to a lot of older artists recently. Like I've been listening to some Magic Jordan.
Okay.
I mean, they're a little newer, but Fleetwood Mac I've had on there for the last couple of weeks. I've
Nice.
been pumping some of that. Just I don't know, the vibes. Miller Blue is another artist.
Okay.
Um, who else? Cleo Soul, a lot of Cleo Soul.
Oh, those are good names. I like those names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are probably outside of what you usually expect, I'd say,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Now, who are you listening to that you think more people should be listening to? Like the
More,
unheard people, like the ones that
unheard.
need their dues.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's another favorite. I've been liking a lot of Omar Apollo stuff recently. Um, SZA, if I'm going off the new album, I'm gonna say Cleo Soul again. Dropped a lot of music. Who else? Victoria Monet
Okay.
in the R&B space. And yeah, I'm gonna go with those.
Oh, those are good ones too. Like
Yeah,
there's a few names I've heard there, but definitely some that just aren't getting enough traction right now.
yeah, sure.
Okay, my favorite question that I ask every person, especially on my first time interviews, is what's one thing you think should be asked more in an interview that's not asked enough?
Hmm. I think something I don't usually see in interviews because a lot of the times it's like it's always post product, right? I feel
Mm-hmm.
like most interviews are during that promotional stage, and I think kind of a setup where there's a little bit more of the backtracking of like how things were created. I think some interview processes could kind of show that if there's like a brief like breakdown of a song or just kind of show the different individual stems that are part of a song and maybe make it something where it's like, okay, yeah, I have these favorite artists, I have these favorite songs, but it's like, why? What are the elements that I pull out of it that I like a lot?
Yeah, actually, that'd be really fun to sit and kind of watch how a song is broken down and how you're putting it together for sure.
For sure.
A lot of the time when I get the interviews, it's usually to post on at a certain point, either when the song's released or just after it's released. So it's hard to get some of those other insights behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that one. That's good. Now, this one's cool because it makes you think a little bit more. What's one thing that you've found out in your career that you wish your younger self knew early on?
It's all about connections, I think. I think that's like the place most people should like emphasize in, because it's everything that, like, I'd say good opportunity that has come has been out of knowing someone who's already been there, right? Or who can put you right where you need to be. And I think a lot of the times as like younger artists, it's a bit more, you have that feeling of like, okay, I have to, the world has to hear what I'm saying, or what I'm making is so valid and so important because you're kind of in this bubble.
Hmm.
But really what it comes down to, like, I think in every industry, it's like a who you know game.
For
And it's a
100%.
more often than not, I think in this day and age too, it's a pay to play game, right? So
Yeah, there's
with
a lot of
that
that.
combination of a little bit of money, a little bit of network can go a long way. I think go further than just writing a great song or writing, making the craziest beat. It's like it has to be placed in the right hands for it to kind of go and have a longer lifespan, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of, people, if they knew that early on, just kind of how to navigate that, it'd probably do a lot more for them.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's like it's not even about music at the end of the day sometimes, right? It's like that's kind of, I think, if as like someone who's kind of trying to like get out there, it's like you gotta, it's almost like get out there first and then the music. That's kind of, I feel like, how most artists have like a longer, like more longevity. It's like when it's just about music at first, you might have this underground following, but it's like the artists that keep it like that, you'll always have this nice fan base, but you might just stay in that territory, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. But if you're really trying to kind of, push the boundaries and really be known to everyone, it almost has to be like an 80-20 split versus like marketing and then music, right? It's like,
Hmm. Yeah,
so
no, that
that's,
makes sense for sure.
yeah.
Now, because you're in a spot where there's a lot of multicultural stuff, what's your favorite spot to go catch a bite?
I've locally, like, I've been eating a lot of like Sri Lankan food. I like
Okay.
Sri Lankan food, Thai food. Um, yeah, like any like pho, I love as well. Just getting soup, a lot of that nearby, and yeah, that's kind of I'm really like I'm always trying new things, like different foods. I like to experiment a bit, but I can't even name places off the top of my head because I like to hop around and
Yeah.
try different things. Like I don't really have like a go-to,
Hmm.
but yeah,
I've
that's
even been
definitely
learning
the.
to cook Thai food and stuff like that. It's been,
No, I'm not even. I wouldn't say I'm the best at it, but yeah, I'll definitely one day I'll dabble. We'll
yeah.
see how it goes.
It's a whole new experience when you're doing something, then you taste it and go,
Yeah,
that's not right.
exactly.
Yeah. Now, what do you hope people take away from your music when they're listening to it?
I think there's a level of like surrealism that I like to have in the songs. Like I'd like to write things that feel a little bit larger than life, or that sound like concepts that are a bit not so descriptive, where you're like, okay, I can see exactly what he's talking about. It's more, I like to allude to like these concepts that kind of make you think a little bit or kind of question it after it's over, not be so clear cut where it's all said and it's all done. I like to leave room for interpretation. So in terms of the music, it's in that space, or going forward, it's in that space where it's like, okay, here's a life lesson that's kind of wrapped into this package that you can kind of interpret and apply to your own story, right? Or yourself.
Hmm. If you were to introduce your music to someone new who's never heard you before, what's the first song you think that they should start with?
I would play Sangria.
Sangria, okay.
Yeah,
Why that one?
Sangria blues. I think because it has all the elements that I think make the sound. So like, guitar, bass, there's some, I guess, worldly flavors when you're talking about like the Latin flavor that comes with it. There's a little bit of the hip hop elements and the R&B in terms of the melodies of the vocals. So I think if I were to kind of make like what is it, like a word map or something, or like a map of just like sangria, and then it would have all those points of like, it's smooth sounding. It has the hip hop R&B elements in terms of the drums. It has the guitar. It has the vocal, like all of that wrapped in one. So I think that would be like what is the sound kind of thing.
Okay.
It'd be that song.
No, I like that description. That's good. I don't have a
Yeah.
lot of people who flush it out so deeply like that.
Yeah. For sure.
Now, what motivates you to keep going through the music world?
I think it's like I wouldn't even call it, I guess, motivation more than an outlet or like a way of just kind of expression. I find it's like that's like my version of journaling. You know, that's kind of always how I look at it. So it's more just like I have an idea and it's like I'm more sharing my thoughts versus trying to hit a certain goal in terms of like a monetary sense, right? It's like I'm just more looking like, okay, I have these stories, and when they're ready, I'll share them and do the best to for them to have the longest life. But I think in my head, I'm always just focused on like, okay, what pops up in my life that I want to write about or make something about, and then kind of go like the second thought is more just like, okay, what am I, trying to hit and what am I trying to reach in that sense,
For sure.
right? And that keeps the motivation part more just, it's more less motivation, more just like self-expression. That's it.
Yeah, I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, my last and probably most important question: are you happy?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think the reason I would say so is because I'm creating what I want to create with people I want to make it with. And it's always good to have like a good circle of people who kind of know the vision, they understand what I want to do, and that makes everything easier, right? And for me, I think a lot of the happiness comes again from doing other things outside of music. Like I wouldn't even say it's all just music based. It's like family, great, friends, great. Everything else is that
Mm-hmm.
is around is happening and it's good and thriving. And I think that just makes music a little bit more like it feels, I think, more accessible in a way that it's easier to come up with stuff than to be like, I'm chasing this song, or I'm chasing this level of this status thing. And I think that loop is kind of endless and it's tiring. And that's where you end up not happy, right? So I think it's like, for me, it's life-based first, experience-based first. And then when the time comes, you'll hear about it.
For sure. Those are good thoughts for sure.
Yeah.
Now that's all I have written down, but what's next for you? You got some new music coming out for everyone? And
Yeah, I have some new stuff I'm getting ready to release for top of spring. I'm gonna put out a project this year as well, an EP, and right now it's just kind of in the final stages of just getting all the songs checked out, making sure everything's sounding good, and then that's it. I'm gonna go from there and start putting the singles out.
nice. Now, where's the best spot that fans can connect with you?
Definitely Spotify and Instagram.
Instagram and spot. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll make sure to link those for sure.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a pleasure getting to know you and kind of pick your brain and get to learn a bit more about what you do. Is there any kind of final tidbits or words of wisdom you want to leave to people?
I mean, thank you guys for listening. Definitely check out the music, and there's a lot more coming. We have a lot of stuff kind of getting wrapped up now, so I'm excited to share it, and you'll hear all these thoughts I've been talking about. You'll kind of hear it in the new music, so I'm excited to share it.
Awesome. Make sure you tag us on like Instagram. We'll share it on our platform and that for you, and
Yeah.
just make sure people get to see what you're doing.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I won't keep you much longer, and you can enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Good
And
talking
yeah,
to you.
have a good one.
Yeah, enjoy.
Bye.
Yeah.